The wobble means nothing. Hey, welcome to the inaugural episode. Heck, it could be the last episode. We just don't know yet of what the heck's going on at your DA's office for this week in May of 2018. My name's George Brockler. I'm the district attorney. I am flanked on either side here by two of your best prosecutors in this jurisdiction. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions about a great case that we have involving a guy named Matt Smith, some drunk driving, and a horrible outcome, and how they managed to get justice out of that inside a courtroom. But before we do that, I thought we'd try to get to know these folks just a little bit better. I'm going to go with age over intellect first. No offense, Brian. I'm going to go to my right here. This is Brian Sugioka. Brian, how long have you been with the office?
I've been with the office as an attorney for 19 years.
And before that, he was part of the custodial crew.
Yes, I worked my way up from the bottom. I was an intern, which is sort of the legal version of a custodian. But I was an intern in the office and then was hired in September of 99.
Man, that's a long time now.
Yeah.
But you've been doing this. And you have held every worthwhile position in the office. Now tell us what you're doing.
Sure. Right now I am the chief over the county court here in Arapahoe. I supervise 13 lawyers. We handle all of the traffic and misdemeanor cases here in Arapahoe County. I also keep a smaller docket of my own cases, primarily murders and vehicular homicides that I handle directly myself as well.
We also have a vehicular homicide, kind of vehicular assault team here.
Correct.
That's an extra duty.
Yes.
We don't take you out of your regular job. We just assign you extra stuff, and you and a team of crazy, intense prosecutors go after all those drunk drivers in the community who do bad things.
Yes. Yeah, we have a vehicular homicide team of which George has made me the head. We have 6 attorneys plus me as part of that group. We handle call-outs, that is, when a vehicular homicide occurs, one or more of us will go to the scene in order to supply law enforcement with advice on scene. We assist with search warrants and things like that as well. And when those cases are filed, we handle those cases from start to finish. And Ms. Tuttle's a member of that team as well.
Now, Brian, I'm always fascinated to know the people that work in our jurisdiction. How did they get here? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Tar Heels fan?
I am a huge Tar Heels fan.
Oh my goodness.
Lifelong. I grew up literally a mile from campus. Both my parents worked at the university. And I attended college nearby at an institution called Guilford College. And
is it accredited?
It is accredited,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I don't know.
It's a Quaker institution. We call ourselves the Fighting Quakers, which is sort of an inside joke if you know anything about Quakers. But
we do. This
and,
explains your aversion to technology, too.
Yes. Well, you've seen my buggy outside, right? Yeah. So, and then I moved out here to go to law school in 1995. I met my wife and never left.
Where did you go to law school?
The University of Denver. The U Pioneers.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
It's big in the area.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, very
Yes.
good school.
Yeah.
I'm a CU guy, so we had that in-state rivalry thing going on.
Sure.
And of course, it means we do have that one thing in common.
What's that?
We all got into DU. I'm kidding. Kristen Tuttle to my left. Kristen, how long have you been with the office?
I started as a legal custodian in May of 2014.
God, it seems like it's been longer than that.
It does.
Honestly.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you have worked your way up through the ranks, and where are you right now?
I am a district court line deputy, so I handle a wide variety of felony cases.
Everything from our lowest class felonies, like maybe a low-level drug case, all the way to first-degree murder.
Yes.
This particular... Oh, wait, hold on. Before we get to this case, I forgot to ask. Where did you grow up? How did you get to us?
I grew up in Florida, on the east coast of Florida.
I've not heard of it. It's part of the Union.
It is.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Weather there? Do they have weather?
Yes, they do. Lots of hurricanes, rain, humidity. I grew up on the beach, moved out here for law school. I went to Florida State. That is extremely important. Best university in the nation. Go Noles.
Oh my God.
It was the top party school, wasn't it?
Top party school in the nation. I know nothing about that, though.
Are you a Winston, what's his name, fan then?
Jameis Winston.
Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Is it Jameis Winston? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's him. And then I moved out here for law school.
And where was law school?
DU, the
I've heard of
superior
DU,
school to CU.
We'll have to talk about that off camera. Why don't you tell us, though, about this particular case in terms of how you got to be a part of it, and then kind of tell us the facts of this thing as we head into what happened in court this week.
Sure. So I was lucky enough to be put on the vehicular homicide team with Brian.
You volunteered though, right? I mean, that's a big deal.
I did, yes. There was a spot that was available, and I was first one to email Brian, I think, overzealous as usual. And this case was assigned to another prosecutor who left the office, and so I got put on it.
Awesome.
It was a very tough case. It sounded like nobody else on the team really wanted to do it with Brian. Brian stuck
Maybe
with
it was
it.
Brian.
Maybe that was the common denominator. But it was tough in the sense that it wasn't your typical slam dunk DUI case. We had low blood results for alcohol and cocaine. We had issues with proximate cause, which actually became an issue for the jury as well. It was nighttime. Defendant was adamant that he was sober and that he didn't do drugs. We had an officer who actually believed him and repeated that repeatedly on body cam to the other officers.
Well, let's back up then. For the folks that don't know the facts of this case, start us off from the beginning. How do we get there?
Right. It's 11 o'clock on September 5th of 2016. The defendant was at a bar, is how the facts came out at trial. He had alcohol in his system and cocaine in his system. He got behind the wheel of his van. He drove on Parker Road. When he approached the intersection of Parker and Temple, he tried to make a left turn. After having told police that he saw a motorcycle coming and that he thought he could make it, he still tried to make the turn. The motorcycle with two young people on it struck the van and were killed.
How old were those victims?
20 and 21.
That is young. My guess is never stood a chance. Between a car and a motorcycle, we never really see any positive outcomes with that.
Exactly. And that was what the coroner would have testified to.
So tell us a little bit about the victims, if you know.
What I know about the victims, I think first and foremost, is they had an extremely wonderful family. Their family was really involved from the get-go, obviously extremely devastated. But what I know is that the two victims were sort of rekindling an old flame. I think they had dated in the past. Brandon, one of the victims, who actually owned the motorcycle, invited Brianna, the other victim, over to take her on a ride for the first time on the motorcycle.
First time. In terms of charging this, Brian, it sounds like you were on this case for a little bit longer and may have been the reason it was so hard to find co-counsel. Tell us about the charges that you chose and why you chose them, and what does it mean? What are those charges mean?
Sure. So the defendant was charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide DUI, 2 counts of vehicular homicide reckless, and 2 counts of reckless manslaughter. To explain a little bit about what that means, vehicular homicide DUI means that if a person is driving under the influence that causes the death of someone, then that's vehicular homicide DUI.
And that's under the influence of alcohol, drugs, both?
Both, correct. And then vehicular homicide reckless means if someone drives in a reckless manner and thereby causes the death of someone, then that's vehicular homicide reckless. And then reckless manslaughter is just engaging in reckless conduct of any kind, really, that caused the death of someone.
Now tell us about what the difference between those charges is, not necessarily factually, but in terms of potential punishment, what class felony, that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, as you obviously know well, George, none of these offenses mandate a prison sentence.
Even though there's 2 people that are killed, they don't have to spend a day in the hoosegow.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. The vehicular homicide DUI offenses the defendant was convicted of are class 3 felonies. Each of those carries with it the potential for 4 to 12 years in prison. They can run either concurrently or consecutively. That is, he could either serve both sentences at the same time or one after the other. It will be our hope that the judge will select a consecutive sentence, but that's in the judge's discretion. The reckless manslaughter and vehicular homicide reckless charges are class 4 felonies. Each of those carries 2 to 6 years in prison. But again, they're also probation eligible offenses.
What happened with the jury? What did they find on these 6 different charges?
The defendant was found guilty of all charges. There was actually a 7th charge of failure to yield right of way that he was convicted of as well. So he was convicted of all 7 counts. The sentencing in this case is set in late July.
That failure to yield, was that something we had, or was that a lesser not included?
We went ahead and charged that originally.
Okay.
Yeah. So the jury was out for pretty much a full day. We got a little sense of maybe the things they were thinking about from some of the questions that they asked. Some of the language in the jury instructions is just can be a little confusing for them, and so the judge did an excellent job trying to clarify some of that for them. But ultimately, they held the defendant accountable for his conduct, and we're obviously very grateful for that.
Now look, you've got these 6 different charges encompassing 2 victims plus the failure to yield charge, that 7th charge.
Yeah.
How is this going to turn out in sentencing? They're not going to be stacked on top of each other. What happens?
Yeah, the general rule is that when you have multiple victims, the court has the ability to sentence those consecutively, but not every count. Essentially what would happen is the top 2 counts, that is vehicular homicide as to Brandon Dobson and vehicular homicide as to Brianna Knight, the 2 vehicular homicide DUI charges, those can run consecutively to one another. All the other sentences are going to run concurrently. So essentially we're looking at a potential 8 to 24-year range if the judge chooses the consecutive option, or 4 to 12 if the judge chooses the concurrent option.
Either way, none of those have to be prison sentences.
That is correct. Yep.
Kristen, for this trial, first off, how long does it take you to prepare for a case like this? And especially when you're in the docket, what folks don't know is you're not just assigned to this trial, you have a docket of how many cases do you think you have assigned to you right now in court?
I have about 180.
And that's 180 felonies, ranging from this and that. How much time does it take you to get up to speed for a challenging case like this?
I would say I spent a good solid at least month on this case alone, reading all the discovery, meeting with my chief, just getting up to speed on what was going on. It was also important to me to meet with the victims' families. I wanted to get to know them. I wanted them to have confidence in me and sort of learn who I am from the get-go, so they could trust me with a case like this. So I spent, I would say, a good solid, month just kind of getting up to speed, meeting with the family, understanding the facts, understanding the issues that we had.
How many days in trial did you guys have for your presentation of the case?
5 full days.
Now, jury selection takes about how long, day-ish?
It was about a half day, I think. I had 40 minutes to pick the jury.
Okay. And you did jury selection?
I did.
Does that mean Brian did opening statement?
He did. Great job.
What was the weakest part of Brian's opening?
There wasn't one.
Yeah.
There wasn't.
And then how many witnesses did you guys put on? Ballpark.
15 to 20.
I think it was 15.
Was there a defense case?
There was. The defense called an expert mechanic to testify about the victim's motorcycle being allegedly defective. And then they also called the passenger in the van, who is also the defendant's friend. And that was all they called.
Who cross-examined the mechanic guy?
That was Brian, and it was excellent.
And then who cross-examined passenger?
That was me.
And how'd that go?
It was a good time. It was a good time.
I want to hear the details of this great stuff here. I don't know the details of this, so I'm going to ask. What was the defense in the case? We've heard that here's a guy that turns left in front of this young couple on a motorcycle. He's got alcohol on board at what level?
Yeah, his BAC was .054.
Okay, and so in Colorado, we infer basically an impaired status at about 0.5 and above, so
right.
Very low. But he had something else in his blood. What was that?
He did. He had cocaine. By the time his blood was drawn an hour and a half after the accident, and by that time he only had a very low amount of cocaine actually in his bloodstream. We were able to call an extra witness to testify, though, that both his blood alcohol as well as the cocaine in his system would have been significantly higher at the time of the accident.
Okay, so you extrapolate back. We're going to use those big words on that.
Correct. The judge didn't allow us to extrapolate to a specific number, but did allow us just the testimony that it would have been higher.
Okay, what was the defense in this case?
Well, there's that saying that if you try to ride 2 horses, you'll fall off them both.
Yeah.
And the defense, it is a saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I think it's Confucius, boss.
But I get that. Now that I'm picturing it, that seems crazy.
Yeah, I mean, how can you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fall off. Anyway, this guy, they really ran 3 horses. They tried to ride 3 horses, really.
Which sounds really crazy.
It sounded, it was very hard. But essentially their theories were, one, that the blood test itself simply didn't reveal he was under the influence. That the numbers were not high enough to support a finding of under the influence. The second was they raised a minor discrepancy in the paperwork associated with the blood draw to try to claim the blood wasn't his at all. And then the third thing that they ran was that the motorcycle itself was defective, in particular the lighting system was, and therefore the defendant could not have seen the motorcycle as he made that turn.
Was that what the expert mechanic was testifying about?
Well, that was what he was supposed to testify about. I mean,
what is that?
Ultimately, the defense expert wasn't really able to come up with a specific diagnosis of the motorcycle. It was more just a bunch of speculation about things that could theoretically be wrong with it.
Oh, and that's what you exploited on cross-examination.
Hence the excellent
This was not the My Cousin Vinny expert witness for Vinny.
Maybe a little closer than one might think. It was a very interesting cross-examination. It turns out the defense expert was actually a friend of the defendant's. And the defense expert actually stuck around in the front row on the defense side for closing arguments to support his friend. And obviously we exploited that as well.
Who was the defense in this case in terms of private counsel?
He was a private lawyer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many witnesses did they call? Just those two?
They just called two, correct.
All right. And then, Crystal, what would, in your mind, as you're going through this, and this thing ended up going at least a week, right? Your case was 5 days. They put on theirs. What was the biggest challenge that you guys came across? If there was one, maybe it was just too good.
There was a lot of challenges. I think for me there was a lot of emotion with the case. Having the family there, watching the entire trial, obviously they were still devastated and they wanted to see justice for their kids. There's a lot riding on it for me personally. I really wanted to do that family justice. So that was tough for me because when bad facts would come out, I just wanted the family to stay positive and have faith in us and have faith in the jury that they would do the right thing. So I would say emotionally, that would be the hardest part for me, is just knowing that I really want to do justice for this family and not knowing exactly what the outcome will be. I think that's always really hard. Factually speaking, we just had some bad facts. There's nothing we could do about that. But at the end of the day, the jury came to the right conclusion. We dealt with them. We put on witnesses to rebut any sort of issues that we had with the case, and the jury did the right thing.
This case has not been sentenced yet. When's sentencing?
Sentencing is July 23rd.
Open to the public.
Correct.
Which courtroom are you guys in?
We're going to be in Division 207.
Which judge is that?
Judge Lutweiler.
Now, this trial, like all the ones that we do, are open to the public. And I think many times folks are just too busy to come in and watch these things. But one of the great things about our system here in America is we don't do trials in private.
Right.
We don't do anything secret. Everything is above board. And so if folks wanted to come to the sentencing, are they allowed to come?
They're absolutely welcome. Just make sure you turn off your cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
And don't wear hats and don't chew gum. I think those are the judge's rules.
And I think pretty please leave your drug paraphernalia in your car.
Yeah.
I think. I'm
Right.
not sure that that's still a rule, but it feels like that's a safe bet. And that's my advice to you too also. Please leave. I'm kidding. I don't think we have an internal rule about that or something. But for future trials too, to the extent that you become aware of them or go onto the website and see them, you can come to any of our courtrooms at any time and watch how your tax dollars are being spent in the name of criminal justice and public safety. Any last words? I'll start with you, Kristen.
I don't think so.
Nice job on the case.
Thanks.
Brian, anything?
Thanks for inviting us in, boss.
Yeah.
Great work again. Thanks.